Well, kia ora to everybody who's joining us now. Just a reminder that we're recording today's webinar. If you wouldn't mind muting your end of things. We've got a couple of presenters with us today and they're ready to go too. All right, great to have everybody joining us today. I'm going to start our meeting today with a karakia. E te hui, whaia te mātauranga kia marama. Kia whai taki ngā mahi katoa, tu maia, tu kaha, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa. Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Anne-Marie Thomas, tōku ingoa. I am the LIANZA project manager for the Te Tōtara development and supporting the implementation of this wonderful framework to the library and information sector. Welcome to this webinar today. This is webinar 3 of 3, part of our series on the Te Tōtara development journeys. Wonderful to have you joining us today. And a big thank you to the two people presenting with me today, Melanie Brebner and Sela Polifeheko, who are going to share their approaches to using Te Tōtara in their settings. Now, apologies to those of you who have heard some of the introductions to the previous two webinars, but for the benefit of people who are just coming across the framework for the first time, I'd just like to go over what it is. So a capability framework is a tool for kaimahi throughout their career journey to self-assess their levels of skill and knowledge and to identify areas for growth. Te Tōtara is based on kaupapa Māori principles and library and information sector ethics and best practice. And it considers evolving competencies such as digital information storage and information sharing. Te Tōtara is also a tool for teams to use to self-assess strengths and gaps, which of course supports workforce planning, which is the focus of today's third webinar. Te Tōtara was created by the library and information sector for the library and information sector, developed in 2022. It had the input of people at National Library, Te Raupu Whakahau, LIANZA, LIANZA, the Pacific Information Management Network, and other LIANZA 6, and it had funding from the New Zealand Libraries Partnership Program. You'll see that the framework has the endorsement of leaders from around the sector. Sorry, I'm just letting some people in while I'm talking here. And you will see that these different associations in the statement of endorsement, they encourage all organisations in the sector to apply the framework to strengthen the learning and development culture in their library and information teams. And they've got the big goal of growing a diverse and capable workforce for the future. This is what the framework looks like. The framework, the endorsement statement, and all the supporting resources can be found on the LIANZA website. The capability framework uses a Tōtara tree metaphor and describes most of the capabilities needed to work in the library and information management sector. The framework includes both relational and technical capabilities and the values and ethics which underpin the application of these. And then there's a section D, you'll see on either side, that guides users to reflect on what they bring to their mahi, and there are supporting resources to assist kaimahi with this self-reflection. So just to tell you a little bit more about the sections, Section A, grounded in kaupapa. The roots contain the values as the ground for our mahi. This section can serve as a valuable starting point for teams to engage with local mana whenua. So it's a national document, and in its application, it is how you engage and work along with your local hapu iwi. And many organisations have both internal and external resources which support library teams' engagement around kaupapa and to understand the local context of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which is different experiences around the country, and Mātauranga Māori, which also has a local context. So in a sense, the roots require a sense of discussion within the team, but it's also connection and engagement with mana whenua. The trunk, Te Tiwai, references the wider ecosystem of the sector's shared values, ethics, and knowledge. The descriptors here should be read in conjunction with the IFLA Code of Ethics, the LIANZA Code of Practice, and also to make reference to your own organisation's mission, values, and policies. Having a clear understanding of these capabilities and codes strengthens your library teams in the face of challenges and change. So that's the core. And then the capability branches, section C, you'll see there are 7 sections in there with 23 capability areas. And each of these has a set of descriptors broken down into the different levels of capability. So to the left of the Tōtara are the relational capability sets, from personal attributes to teamwork and collaboration and community care and services. At the top, you'll see planning, management and leadership capabilities. And these are inclusive in terms of leadership of any area, such as specialist leadership, cultural leadership. And then to the right of the Tōtara tree are the technical capabilities, literacies, reference and research services, information, knowledge and data management, collection, records and archives management. And there's the evolving competencies described, such as digital information storage and sharing, and AI and algorithmic literacy. And there is also space to add your own specialist and expert capability areas. So how to apply the framework in practice? In this webinar series, we've introduced 3 ways to apply the framework. In April, the Your Journey webinar looked at how Te Tōtara supports kaimahi to self-assess their capabilities and self-determine areas for growth. And then in May, the Team Leader Journey webinar illustrated how people leaders are using Te Tōtara for professional development conversations and for collective team goal setting. And in today's webinar, our focus is on how your workforce and service planning can be informed by the use of Te Tōtara. And you will find the recordings for all 3 webinars on the LIANZA Professional Development webpage. So, use of Te Tōtara can be at an individual's initiative. Anyone can pick up and use Te Tōtara as a personal development tool. And they can choose to discuss this, bring this into a conversation with their line manager, discuss their self-assessment thinking, and they might agree goals from this. And agreed goals from this process can then be transferred to the organisation's timings and templates for performance development review. So integrating Te Tōtara in this way, it enriches existing processes in your organisation for the identification and recording of the learning and development goals for the year. And it's a cycle of review that you have in your organisation. Te Tōtara can be part of that cycle of review. And 2 resources support this journey, this individual journey. Kaimahi can use either the Tōtara downloadable workbook for a comprehensive approach. If you go to webinar 1, Rachel Fisher describes using Tōtara and coming up with 3 really clear goals and action plans. Kaimahi might also choose to download the 4-page Tōtara worksheet for a simpler exercise. And both resources support the creation of learning and development goals and action plans. So development depends on a person's role and context. This isn't a competency framework where somebody has to pass and succeed at every competency. Instead, this is a capability self-review. So there are 3 capability levels in the framework, but there's recognition too that there is a kōrero level for those new to an area. We're all strengthening our knowledge at different levels over time, no matter how long you've been in your profession. No one is an expert at every capability. So it's about identifying your strengths, your marama and mato areas, and also saying where you would like or need to pick up a new area of capability. The second way in which Te Tōtara can be applied is in supporting team leaders to build a learning and development culture. So instead of that being something really abstract, Te Tōtara helps team leaders with a tool to build this culture of learning and development. And that grows through conversations with employees about their capabilities and working together with them to plan development. Where an area, I don't know if my little speech bubble is going to come up there, but I actually had captured from a previous conversation someone saying that it does not make sense for everybody in your team to have the same goal if you could do this as a team goal. So it really supports an area where there's a need for general upskilling, and many teams have identified a need to upskill on digital areas, on understanding and living and breathing the kaupapa of their team. So that's something that they might work together to create a shared goal about. And because the focus is strengths-based, it highlights what capabilities you bring as well as what capabilities need development in the team. And team leaders have reported that using Te Tōtara with their teams has been a really positive experience. And it's one that boosts employee engagement, it speeds up capability development, and it increases retention. That the team members feel valued when their development needs are valued. And of course, it also ensures that your organisation has the skills it needs to flourish. So you can hear good examples of that in last month's webinar, The Team Leader's Journey. Team leaders can use this Tōtara worksheet. This is like a 1-pager of the capability sets and an interactive series of checkboxes. And you could do a team mapping exercise using this, for example, as part of a team planning day. Creating this visual map of the team's strengths and gaps provides a great basis for identifying areas of capability that can be shared with each other in training or mentoring sessions, both within the team and perhaps with other teams or even beyond. It's also a great way of using it to set the team goals because they can visually see where they have lots of capability in one area and a gap in another. And just like the waka, the waka's going down the awa, you don't want every rower on one side. So this is a really good way of saying, let's ensure that we've got the spread of capabilities that this waka needs to progress on its mahi. The waka metaphor actually comes from the Whanganui District Library and the way they have interpreted workforce planning and capability frameworks. So the three journeys that we've described are interrelated. So the individual's taking steps to develop in areas relevant to their role or aspirational for their next role. And the team leader is developing their capabilities as a people manager. And both of these processes provide better information for service and workforce planning. By using the framework, everyone has a shared language for workforce planning and a shared point of reference to inform training, recruiting, and it informs HR managers and senior organisational managers in the future planning of libraries and library workforce. So let's just look quickly at the wider context and some of the signposts to this planning future. What's the future workforce? So I put down some questions here that I think it's really important to ask. Would Tōtara help us have some directions for strategic planning? So this question, how much do we know about the mix of capabilities in this service? And how does the team leader or manager assess capability strengths and gaps? So Tōtara gives that tool, gives that reference point for that picture to emerge. And then, well, what are those capabilities needed? Where are the gaps? What's the capability need for the future? And which ones will require extra thought and planning? And what are the capability gaps that require extra resources? So using Tōtara and then bringing those questions into conversations with people who resource teams, people who budget for teams for FTE, people who are writing recruitment strategies, for people who will be overseeing succession planning. Those sorts of questions are important planning questions which Tōtara can support you to have those conversations. Now, we know there are big technical developments ahead. The World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs 2025 report, it says that on average, workers can expect that 2/5 of our existing skill sets will be transformed or will become outdated over the 2025 to 2030 period. And if that is a bit of a worrying thing to think about, just think about how much we've all transformed our skill sets over the last 10 years. So this is probably no surprise that we need to think about how much change will be experienced by workforces in the next 10 years. And there were several key findings in this report that I thought were relevant to the library and information workforce. AI and big data, you won't be surprised, topped the list of the fastest growing skills, followed closely by technology literacy, as well as networks and cybersecurity. And many library and information professionals are at the forefront of digital knowledge management. We don't think of libraries as books anymore. We know that libraries are information management hubs. And so those skills that are going to be perhaps more and more evolved over the next 10 years, it's going to be very important that our workforces evolve with them. But it's not just those technical skills. Complementing those, the report talked about the personal and relational skills, creative thinking, resilience, flexibility and agility, along with curiosity and lifelong learning. And these are the capabilities that we need to keep to the fore because these are the engagement capabilities. And they also talked about analytical thinking remains the most sought after core skill. So even in quite specialist library and information workforces where you think AI and big data might start to take on some of the tasks, it still needs a skilled, capable person to do the analytical thinking to use that data. Right, so that's a look at the future of work. There were some statistics there predicting from employers what they thought was going to happen in their workplaces. This is generic workplaces. This isn't just library and information specific. But of course, employers are planning to look at skills needed. They're looking to hire staff with new skills. They're looking to reduce staff as their skills become less relevant and transition staff from declining to growing roles. So these are great change forces going on around us. So we do need to be future prepping our library and information workforces to be in the best position to upskill in the right skills. In a New Zealand perspective, a recent Randstad Work Monitor report found that employees are very cognizant of this need to upskill. And in this report, 72% said they wanted upskilling in their current role and to prepare for future roles. Another interesting finding in the New Zealand survey is that 8 in 10 respondents said that a sense of community helps them perform better. So when we're looking at building capability in a team, as a team strengthens its shared purpose and its shared capabilities, and it recognises what it needs from a team perspective, then you've got a committed team who are engaged with the training and development. So just to finish off, the Randstad report concluded with 3 key learnings. The first is that employees want upskilling that is relevant to their jobs and to their future aspirations. Sometimes there's a lot of mandatory content in the sort of learning and development that goes on in big organisations. It's equally important to find training that is very relevant to people's particular roles. And Tōtara is a job-relevant professional development tool that can assist with that. The second finding was that employers should offer equitable access to skilling. They call it skilling, I call it upskilling, but equitable access to upskilling across all talent. And Tōtara supports job-relevant conversations with all team members, whether they're full-time career professionals or they're casual staff. So it's very easy to have a conversation with Tōtara as your reference point in a quick mode, and it's equally easy to encourage staff who are full-timers to do something a bit more comprehensive. And the third thing in the report as a key learning was that people want meaningful, continuous professional learning opportunities. Now, Tōtara informs prioritisation of learning opportunities, both from an individual and from a team perspective. So, to summarise, in summary, Tōtara supports the individual team member and their line manager to reflect on the values and capabilities needed for their role. And this transfers to an enriched PDR process and greatly assists people leaders to understand the capabilities within their teams. Tōtara supports planners to understand what their library workforce needs now and in the future. And recruiters can use descriptors from the framework to inform job advertisements, position descriptions, interview questions, and onboarding checklists. So sending clear messages to the talent pool, giving them more accurate signals of the desired capabilities of a role and the kaupapa and ethics of the team. So that's quite a lot from me as an intro. What I'd really like to do now, and I'm very pleased to introduce you to Melanie Brebner. Melanie is the District Library Manager at Matamata Piako District Council. And Melanie has been an early adopter of the framework and engaged with her council and her team around the use of the framework. And Melanie's going to describe how they've integrated the capability framework into their team's processes. So welcome, Melanie. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Ko airangi i ngā rangi huitini me te iwi o Ngāpui te whakapapa mai, engari no matamata ahau, I tupu aku ahau I Tamaki Makaurau, ko Pairoa te kāinga e naine, hei pou whare pokapoka a rohi ahau, he tangata tiriti ahau, ko Melanie taku ingoa, tēnā tātou. So as Anne-Marie said, I'm District Library Manager at Matamata Piako District Libraries. So that's down here in Hobbit country. So we have 3 libraries based in Te Araha, which is where I'm mostly based, Morrinsville and in Matamata. We have a team of 22, so that in a leadership team there are 6 of us. So we've got 3 team leaders, a technical services librarian, and a community engagement librarian. Along with our technical services librarian, we have a technical services assistant librarian, custom services librarians at each of the 3 libraries, and then lots of part-time library assistants and casuals. We service a population of about 37,000, so we are considered a rural provincial district. So we have our 3 little towns and then lots of farmland roundabout. In our strategy, we have 3 main drivers, which are read, grow, and connect. And the connect part of that includes, the grow part of that includes growing our people. Next slide, please, Anne-Marie. So I first heard about Te Tōtara when I was a team leader at Hauraki District Council, and a shout out to Marion and Karen, who I saw popping into the room earlier, who were, Karen was one of my colleagues over there at Hauraki. And at that point, I wanted to come up with a framework that would help identify the strengths and weaknesses and the gaps in the team. So as probably most of you who are involved in smaller teams, you'll find that a lot of the time the staff may have grown up through the roles. They may have started as either casuals or part-time library assistants and worked their way up to team leadership role. So what we found both at Hauraki and then when I got over here at Matamata as well is that the library leadership team had qualifications, and those underneath who had grown up through the ranks didn't actually have qualifications and had learned how to be librarians in the one location. So it's not like the bigger cities where people move around a lot more, or where there is more training opportunities and opportunities to grow into other roles. So my goal at that point was to try and identify the gaps and work out how we could go about supporting staff and becoming professionally developed. I was really pleased when Te Tōtara was introduced in mid-2022 because it meant that I didn't have to start from scratch myself. So I was very relieved to find a ready-made model that was appropriate for libraries that we could adopt. Then I waka jumped over here to Matamata Piako, and as I said, I found a similar pattern. So the current library leadership team over here at Matamata Piako District Libraries, we are all Auckland refugees. So every single one of us now has come down from Auckland, and that's where we've learnt to be librarians. And we have one community engagement librarian who's come from academia and is going to become professionally registered through Route C. The rest of us all have library qualifications. So what I wanted to know is how can we encourage our existing staff to work towards library qualifications and invest in their own professional development, so that when we wanted to recruit in the future for our senior roles, that we could recruit from internally. So that was my main objective. I also wanted to know how we can develop staff who may not, for various reasons, may not want to work towards library qualifications, but still need to have those key library skills in order to do their jobs effectively. So we were really lucky in November 2022 that our then community engagement librarian, Heather Furness, was selected to be a kākaho on the Whiria Te Tangata project, and that was through NZLPP funding as well. And it included a thread on Te Tōtara, and that's when I got my first real look at Te Tōtara, and I thought that it would help to solve some of our problems. I knew it would work for our library leadership team, but I did wonder how it would work for the rest of the staff. About this time as well, our learning and development team from the council were starting work on a workforce capability framework for the whole of the organisation. They really loved the Te Tōtara framework and they actually wanted to introduce it across council, but they weren't successful in getting that across the line. They were successful in incorporating the descriptors for the capability levels from Te Tōtara. So those are actually in our council's learning and development framework. And it was agreed that libraries could continue with both Te Tōtara and with the council framework. So we're integrating those two things. So I worked with learning and development team on transferring the skills from our position descriptions into the learning and development framework for each job title in the libraries team. And that now contributes to inductions and our catch-ups, so we can look and see how far people have progressed according to the different capabilities there. And that ensures that our new employees are on track. So at this point, with that basis in mind, it was a matter of working out how to incorporate Te Tōtara into that model as well. So next slide, please, Anne-Marie. So this is a look at the learning and development framework for our library assistants. So it gives what skills they should get from 1 to 12 weeks, then 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, and then what they need to learn going forward. So those are the skills from their position descriptions. And what I'm interested in is where these fit into the Te Tōtara framework and how we can incorporate those. So this has, we've begun to roll this out to all new employees as they came back. So Fiona, our technical services librarian, was our first, and it was a tentative start because it was all new for me and definitely new for her as well. We had a new community engagement librarian in July 2024. And as a direct report of mine, I was keen to make sure that we use this learning and development framework for her, and also using Te Tōtara to look at how we could go about getting her professionally registered. So with her, we're looking at the framework at each of our catch-ups and performance appraisals, and that's a way of checking progress. And she's actually way ahead with some of the skills that she's got, as Anne-Marie pointed out. People are all at different levels. And then some of the other more library-related stuff, she's tracking well on those. So that it's really good to be able to have a measurement that we can use. So the next step was to ensure also that our team leaders are using this same approach for our new recruits as well. Next slide, please, Anne-Marie. So as I said, the next thing was about spreading the word in libraries of Te Tōtara. So what we have here is actually our Matamata Libraries team values. So we started this with our ways of working together, just as a library leadership team, and that was when we first onboarded Fiona as our technical services librarian. It seemed like a really good time to revisit some of this. And we found that the values that we came up with mapped really well to the kaupapa of Te Tōtara, and we used those libraries and we used the values that the wider team had also identified in an earlier workshop, and we found that those also mapped well. So we found we were able to massage them into those roots. In November that year, our Kaita Kāwinga Māori led a workshop at our staff development day to work on a team karakia that included, so he created that for us based on these values. So that's something that all three teams say in the mornings in their morning hui. So that's something, even though we're at different branches, that we're able to know we're doing something together to start the day and empower us with these values that we've identified. Starting in January of that year, 2024, I started working through Taku Tōtara, the Te Tōtara workbook myself, and identified gaps in my learning. And I shared that with the library leadership team and asked them also to work through their checklist. We all agreed that for most of the team, that this was actually too big an elephant for them to eat. and probably not appropriate, and we needed to provide some direction and focus for them. We identified Ngā Paiaka, the roots, as a place that we all had gaps and that we thought most of the rest of the team probably had gaps as well. So we identified some team goals for the year, and we started with something fairly simple. Well, it's simple, but it's major. Correct pronunciation of Te Reo Māori, and we also looked at Te Ao Māori as well. And we were fortunate that our customer experience group manager was really keen on what we were doing and had also planned a pronunciation workshop for the community experience group. And this meant that the whole team would be able to tick this goal off. So I think that was the really important part, is that we were giving them goals that we could support them in achieving. Our community experience group manager is actually really supportive of Te Tōtara and is sort of looking tentatively at whether this is something that we might be able to implement across the whole of the community experience group, which I think is really exciting. So in May, it was the beginning of our goal setting for the next cycle of our performance appraisal system. And we held an all-team meeting via Zoom to introduce Te Tōtara to the wider team. And we recorded the meeting so that those who couldn't attend could take a better view, could look later on. And teams were encouraged to develop their own team goals. So each of the branch libraries was encouraged to develop a goal, and also that they were encouraged to have individual goals across the whole of the Te Tōtara framework. We had a staff development day in May, which was the pronunciation workshop for the whole CX group. And then July 2024, our new community engagement librarian came along, and that's when we introduced the leading and development framework and got some of that work going. And then in August 2024, we were really lucky that Rachel Fisher, who's on the call today, and she was able to jump onto a project, a pilot study that was looking at transferring or developing the training modules within our process management system. So Rachel did a body of work on transferring the skills from Te Tōtara into the capabilities from Te Tōtara into our training management system, the training module there, which is we use ProMap. So the goal is that for all the learning from the learning and development framework and from Te Tōtara will be included in ProMap. Team leaders will be able to assign modules and monitor progress of their teams, and it will also enable us to identify where we need to focus our professional development, because we'll be able to see more clearly where people are ticking their goals. So a little bit like that worksheet that Anne-Marie showed us earlier. So if you can go to slide 5, please. So this is a little bit of what Te Tōtara looks like inside our learning management system, which is ProMap. The modules might link to other resources or refer to the trainee to modules in CoLab, which is going soon, but hopefully we'll find something else to replace that. And staff will be given time to complete the training that has been assigned to them. And this will become a part of their performance appraisal conversations. So finally, on to slide 6, please, Anne-Marie. What have we learned over the last year or so of trying to implement Te Tōtara? So first of all, we successfully advocated for professional registration to be included in position descriptions of the library leadership team. And that means that membership and registration fees are now going to be paid for by council. So we're going to be able to use Te Tōtara to help us ensure that we've covered off our box as well. We've completed our first cycle of the performance appraisal system. And I was lucky enough with Amanda Bond to be able to look at how the capabilities in Te Tōtara might map, or the box might map against the bodies of knowledge from professional registration might map against Te Tōtara. And we found that Ngā Paiaka, so that those are the roots for BOC 1 and 11, so that's the kaupapa down there. Te Tiwai is the trunk, that's part B there, the ethics and the conduct. And that's very definitely Bok 1. And then the Ngā Ruha, the branches. So what we found here, so they're the capability group or group C there. So what we found is that the left-hand side of the tree had sort of what we would consider the softer skills that generally in our council we cover quite well with training, and that the right-hand side of the tree focused more on the technical skills of librarianship or information professionalism. So box clusters 2 to 5. And what I had found was that a lot of our teams, some of the teams, when they chose their goals, were choosing mainly from the left, which I think our council covers off already. So I'm really keen for them this year to make sure that we cover off some skills from the right-hand side of the tree. So to that end, we've chosen one goal from Ngā Paiaka, the roots, and that is this year to learn the boundaries of the iwi in our town, in each of the different towns. So that's Bok 11 or Bok Cluster 6. They have to choose at least one goal from the right side of Ngā Ruha, the branches, and that this year with the one we've chosen is to write 4 book reviews that can go into the bulletin or into the Facebook page, or they can produce a tutorial in consultation with the team leader and the community engagement librarian. And that's covering off Bok 4 or Bok Cluster 2. They're allowed other goals as well, but those are the 2 sort of compulsory goals. So if they want goals from the other side of the tree, from the left-hand side there, that's absolutely fine. So one of our team leaders has chosen Haora, teamwork and collaboration. She's created an individual goal to provide support and training for neurodiversity sensitivities, such as baffling noises, cancelling headphones, and she's going to create a one-pager as a result of that. And then as a team goal, for the rest of the team, she's proposed that she presents the one-pager at our staff development day. So that's a really good way of passing on that knowledge that she's gaining. The next step for us is to embed Te Tōtara as part of our processes. So we want it to become business as usual, not something we have to think about so hard, but something that comes a little bit more naturally. And so those the learning and development capability framework and Te Tōtara will be included in the inductions. And it will be a foundation of the professional development program for the year. We're also looking at introducing relevant parts to other teams within the organisation, as I said, and that's possibly where those softer skills fit in, and definitely the roots. So I think the important thing for me from our learning is, like I've said in the slides here, we always remember how to eat an elephant. So it's taking small bites, one little piece at a time. So we're using that framework for gap analysis, considering the level of each person, and then focusing just on one small part rather than trying to cover the whole lot off. My advice would be to use the tools that Anne-Marie has supplied. They're really amazing. And I think, as always, the importance is in the journey itself, not necessarily in the destination, because this is about lifelong learning, and it is about, always learning and growing. So we'll never get there. We're always going to be on the way. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Well, kia ora, Melanie. It's really great to hear that whole story. You're now in year 2, and it's a very matured application of Te Tōtara, and it's just fantastic that you're here today to share that with others. I would like now to introduce Sela Polefehoko, who is the Pacific Engagement Advisor at University of Otago. Sela is part of a tertiary library team that has really integrated the framework into their thinking and their doing. And Sela's going to talk today about how she's integrated it into her thinking about student engagement and learning and development. Welcome, Sela.
Malole, everyone. My name is Sela Polefehoko, and so I'm the Pacific Engagement Advisor at the University Library. Next one, Anne-Marie. So ko ai au, I'm Tongan. I was born in Tonga. I have roots in Lapaha, Fomotu, Muitoa, and Vātu'u. I am a daughter of immigrants. I was born in Tonga, but I migrated over to New Zealand at the age of 9. I am a wife of an academic, which is why I've ended up at the University of Otago, and a proud mother of a 4-year-old named Nancy Laumanu. My professional background, I don't have a library background. You could probably count 2 years now that I've been in the role as a library experience, but I have over 10 years experience working in tertiary engagement with a strong focus of student success and community connection. And my academic journey, as listed, I have studied in a number of university um, spaces in New Zealand. So I do kind of have a little bit of background and understanding around how universities are run. But just a little background, I was introduced to the Te Tōtara capabilities framework when I used it when trying to recruit Pacific student assistants in our library. I was referred to it by Siobhan Smith, who's our associate librarian for customer experience. And so I used that to help frame the discussions on how Pacific students can see themselves in the library and how they can develop themselves. And then from that, yeah, I've pretty much just started using Te Tōtara for my own work, and which I will probably go into in my slides. Next one, Emery, please. So my current role as a Pacific Engagement Advisor is in the University Library. I'm responsible for connecting the library with our various Pacific stakeholders and networks on campus, and vice versa. I often describe myself when talking to various stakeholders as the Pacific Library face, when trying to connect them with the right individual and services. I also help lead Pacific focused initiatives within the library, which promote our services across the wider university community. And yes, and so ever since trying to recruit our student assistants, I've used it pretty much on my own because we have our own capabilities framework in the university. However, just in terms of my own work, I use Te Tōtara. Next one, Emery. So my role supports and drives the library specific Pacific strategic framework and its associated goals. This framework aligns with the wider university's Pacific framework. Both are essential for advancing Pacific academic success within the university and more specifically in the library. A key part of my role involves building a bridge between the library and our Pacific Development Office as I regularly consult with them for advice and guidance in progressing our library Pacific strategic framework. Another important aspect of this work is ensuring that the framework is shaped by its stakeholders, and part of my role includes engaging with Pacific staff, students, and community members on campus to ensure their voices are reflected in our direction and goals within the library. Additionally, I also support and advise our library staff on their own Pacific engagement efforts. For example, helping our subject librarians incorporate Pacific focused content into their teaching modules. Next. How I use the Te Tōtara in my work, I use it as a reflective tool, especially around my engagement work. It supports, I find that it supports my
Hello.
professional development.
Oh,
Hello?
gosh, that was quick.
Okay, that's not me.
Oh, okay.
Hello,
All right.
can we put
I'll
our-
leave the
our,
building now. I'll see you soon. Where is JB Hi-Fi?
Just asking
Okay.
you all to mute, please.
So yes, I use Te Tōtara in my work because it supports my professional development, but it also contributes, I feel, to my personal growth. And the Te Tōtara connects the two. It allows me to assess the current state of Pacific engagement within the library and determine whether we are meeting the needs of Pacific staff and students. And through this reflective process, we can also identify opportunities for growth, whether that means being more VAR-centered or increasing visibility or improving advocacy. This supports the setting of the development goals that align with Pacific research and support. Te Tōtara also helps me adapt the library frameworks to better reflect Pacific context and values. So this co-adaptation ensures that our work aligns with the University of Otago's Pacific Strategic Framework, which emphasizes culturally grounded capabilities like authentic relationships, culturally responsive services, and tailored and most importantly, I think for me, is sharing our Pacific knowledge within our wider library staff. Next one, Anne-Marie. Te Tōtara also helps me adapt the library frameworks to I use Te Tōtara as a shared tool for team kōrero and development. So just like our previous speaker, referring to the framework encourages a collective responsibility for Pacific engagement. It isn't just my goal as the Pacific Engagement Advisor, but it is a collective effort for everyone in the library. This has led to initiatives such as Pacific-specific workshops and cultural development for the wider library. One particular initiative was a workshop that I had created for our leadership team around cultural connections, which was centered around the use of, and also it was a talanoa around the cover bowl. Support and mentorship. I currently have a staff member who reports to me, and I use Te Tōtara to guide conversations around professional development. So something like just this morning, I spoke to them about their career aspirations and how they might develop leadership capabilities within the library. We spoke about what are their goals for the future, what kind of developments or where they want to end up. That's how I use Te Tōtara. While I have no immediate plans to leave my role, but I do believe of the principle that success is succession. So I am sort of just trying to develop the person that's reporting to me, just think around the development and leadership, and hopefully if there's any opportunities that arises in the future, I have helped grow people within the library so we can just also retain them. And so ultimately, Te Tōtara has helped me align the library sector standards with our strategic goals in the university library, because I mainly drive and also lead our strategic goals in terms of our Pacific work. The Te Tōtara has helped build a strong foundation in terms of library. Because I don't have a library background, this seems to be my reference document. And so I get to just connect the university library with the library sector, and around, and then I use it as the foundation for advocating for our Pacific students, for our roles, funding initiatives, and things like that. So yeah, so hopefully I can help contribute to building the library as a more diverse and inclusive and future-focused library. I guess that's how I would use, how I'm currently using Te Tōtara. So, yeah. Aloha, Vito. That's for me, Anne-Marie.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Stella. I really like the way you've got to focus on your Pacific students, supporting them to understand the possibilities there with library, but also focus on the collective goals of the team around responsibility for engagement with Pacific knowledge and students and your own development. So I think you're really showing a very personal and but well-developed response and how Te Tōtara is helping you. So really valuable. Thank you so much. I would just like to sum up today. You can find the resources for your strategic Te Tōtara journey on the LIANZA website and join the community of practice, which is how I have met, and these people have been able to share conversations with each other. There's 125 people who are active in the community of practice at the moment and growing. So with the Te Tōtara strategic journey, I guess the things I really want to leave you with is that kaimahi feel valued when they have an intentional conversation about their development. It provides a shared language for team development, and it develops middle managers themselves to grow a learning and development culture. It enriches PDR processes. It's a tool for gap analysis around current capabilities, and it's a tool for planning for future state capabilities. These are really essential for any organisation, and I look forward to hearing more stories from people in the community of practice of how they are applying it in their own way, in their own context. And I'll just leave you here with this image of the LIANZA webpage. It's your go-to for all things Te Tōtara. Thank you so much for joining us all today. We have really got time for patai. I'm sorry, but if we could all do an applause for our brilliant speakers. And thank you to all of the people who have presented over the 3 webinars in this series of the Te Tōtara development journeys. Ka kite. Thank you for your hearts and claps and comments for our presenters today. Kia ora.